Hello everybody and welcome to M&M English with another video. This video is going to be about phrasal verbs. To be specific, the grammar of phrasal verbs. We will talk about 3 different types of phrasal verbs and learn some very useful phrasal verbs, as well as see them in a story. Stay tuned, and please, if you enjoy the video, like, subscribe, and more importantly, share with your friends. Now, let's go to the big question. What is a phrasal verb? A phrasal verb is basically a combination of a verb and a particle, or maybe 2 particles. And that's why some people also call it a multi-word verb. Now, remember that usually the meaning of a phrasal verb is idiomatic. And this means it's difficult to guess from the individual words what a phrasal verb exactly means. So, in that definition, we have specifically mentioned that a phrasal verb is a combination of a verb and 1 or more particles. What is a particle? In a phrasal verb, a particle can be a preposition, an adverb, or both a preposition and an adverb. And now that we have mentioned particles, by the way, remember that in the pronunciation of phrasal verbs, the stress usually falls on the particle, on that preposition or adverb, one of them. Let's see that in an example. For example, check in. Check in means to go to a desk in an airport or hotel and tell an official or a receptionist that you have arrived. For example, I have to check in before 8. This means I have to go and tell them that I have arrived before 8 o'clock. Sometimes we can change the particle to make the opposite meaning, but notice that this is not always possible. Always check. The opposite of check in is check out, or check out of a place. Check out of means to leave a place, to leave a hotel, hospital, etc., where you have been staying. For example, she checked out of the hospital yesterday morning. Now, the first type of phrasal verbs, and it's going to be about intransitive phrasal verbs. Now, intransitive is a grammar word, but what does it exactly mean? It is used to refer to verbs. Verbs that don't need an object if you want to understand what they mean. For example, look up. Look up is an informal phrasal verb that means to get better, to improve. Business was bad, but things are looking up. So, be looking up, or look up in general, doesn't need an object to convey the meaning. And that's what we exactly mean by an intransitive verb or phrasal verb. Here's another example. Things started to look up after I got a job. Show up. Show up is another intransitive phrasal verb. It's also informal, remember? And it means to arrive in a place where somebody is waiting for you. For example, she didn't show up till the next morning. I wanted to meet him, but he didn't show up. So he didn't come, he didn't arrive. I was waiting for him, and she didn't show up. So she didn't come. Now, let's talk about the second type of phrasal verbs. It's going to be about transitive phrasal verbs. So, Transitive is the opposite of intransitive. And I think you can guess, it's just easy mathematics. A transitive verb or a phrasal verb needs an object. The object can sometimes now separate the verb and the particle, and that's what we mean by separable. So the phrasal verb needs an object, and this object can separate the two, the verb and the particle. But what do we mean by that? Let's check that in an example. Look something up. Pay attention that dictionaries usually use the word something if the phrasal verb is transitive, if it needs an object. They usually say, look something up. But now, look something up. If you look something up, you look for information in a book or online. For example, I had to look the word up. You can look it up online, I guess. Now, if you pay attention, there is an object, the word, coming between the verb, look, and the particle, up. So look up, look the word up. Or just like this one, look it up. So look something up means to look for information in a book or online. Here's another example. Make something up. If you make something up, you invent it, like invent a story or an explanation for something. It usually collocates with words like make up a story or make up an excuse. Or, remember the separable? Because this is a separable phrasal verb, we can say make a story up or make up a story. Make an excuse up or make up an excuse. Here's an example. I didn't want to see him. I made up an excuse and left. It was making up stories for children. And here's another example. Try something on. If you try something on, you wear an item of clothing to check if it fits or looks good on you. For example, I tried the jacket on, but it was too small. And now let's talk about the common mistakes with separable phrasal verbs. Remember that the object can come between the verb and the particle or after them. But, a big but, if it's a pronoun, it must always come between them. But what do we mean by that? A pronoun? Yes, take a look at these examples. Tried it on. Tried it on. Tried it on is correct, but it is wrong to put the pronoun it after the phrasal verb. Tried on it is always wrong, unless we imply something different. Here's another example. Look them up. So, look them up is correct. It's a pronoun, and it's coming between the verb and the particle. But look up them is always wrong. Here's another mistake. It's less common, but even professionals might make. When a phrase is long, don't separate them. For example, we say, look up whether what she told me about NASA is right. Now, because the phrase is long, whether what she told me about NASA is right, we don't separate the verb and its particle. For example, we can't say, look whether what she told me about the NASA is right up. Like, look, blah, 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 up. This is pretty long and will not make sense. And now let's very quickly jump to the next type. It's type 3, and it's about inseparable phrasal verbs. So in this case, we again have an object, yet it will never come between the verb and its particle. Phrasal verbs that are inseparable are usually shown with somebody or something in a dictionary, and they usually put this word, somebody or something, after the particle. Anyways, let's get on with some inseparable phrasal verbs, where you cannot place an object between a verb and its particle. To look after somebody is to take care of or be responsible for somebody or something. For example, he looked after the baby. Remember, we can never say he looked the baby after, because, yes, it takes an object, but the verb and particle are inseparable. You cannot put a word between them. Here's another example. Look into something. If you look into something, you investigate and try to discover the facts about something, usually a crime or a problem. For example, I complained to the airline and they're looking into it. Next phrasal verb is come across somebody or something. If you come across somebody, you meet them. And if you come across something, you just find them by chance. Anyways, you either meet them by, if you come across something or somebody, you meet somebody or find something by chance. For example, I came across her the other day. Next is stand for something. If something stands for something, it represents it. It has that meaning. For example, www stands for World Wide Web. Next example, go out with somebody. If you go out with somebody, you spend time with them or have a romantic relationship with them. For example, Mary is going out with Tom's brother. Here's another example. Cut back on something. If you cut back on something, you reduce the amount of something you eat, spend, use, etc. For example, I must cut back on sweets to try and lose weight. And now let's move on to phrasal verbs that are both transitive and intransitive. Remember that some verbs, depending on meaning, can be both transitive, they need an object, or intransitive, they don't need an object. But usually there's a difference in meaning as well. What do we mean by that? Let's take a look at look up. So look up means get better if used without an object. Now look something up has a different meaning. It means to try to find information. For example, the boy's results are looking up. Or I looked it up means trying to find information. I looked it up but couldn't find it. Here's another example. Take off. If you say take off without an object, it usually refers to a plane leaving the ground. And if you say take something off, you are referring to an act of removing a piece of clothing. For example, when the plane took off, left the ground, I took my jacket off too, removed my jacket. And now let's use all the phrasal verbs in the context of a story. The Light Life guest. I work as a receptionist at a small hotel called Light Life. And that's what the LL on our uniforms stand for. When I get some time, one of my favorite hobbies is looking up strange words. And another is guessing people's ages from a distance. So, one evening, when I spotted a woman walking towards the hotel, I thought she was 40, more or less. It was 4 o'clock, and like every other summer, business was looking up. So I was expecting some guests to check in. We had only one reservation left for the day, though, and that person hadn't shown up yet. I had a funny feeling that this woman might stay over, especially since the evening looked quiet. While waiting, I decided to try on my new shirt with the double L logo. More and more people were traveling, and business was looking up faster than any previous year. But I desperately needed to cut back on my extra shifts. The woman suddenly entered. She didn't look 40 up close. She looked younger and way more beautiful than I first thought. But she was tired and a bit lost. "I need a room," she said, then quickly smiled and added, "Also, would you like to go out with me after your shift?" I froze because she told me exactly what I was thinking of that moment. I quickly told her, I would like to consider that generous offer, but there's a problem I need to look into first." That's when I realized I'd come across her before, not in person, but in my dictionary that morning. The word I had looked up was serendipity, which means a happy accident. And there she was, smiling like one. So let's now recap the idioms we looked at: check in, check out, look something up, show up, make something up, try something on, look after somebody, look into something, come across somebody or something, stand for something, go out with somebody, cut back on something, take something off. Now, as a review, here are the key ideas we have discussed about the grammar of phrasal verbs. We said that a phrasal verb is a usually idiomatic expression that is a combination of a verb and a particle or two, and the stress is usually put on the particle, and there are two types: transitive and intransitive. Regarding some transitive verbs, that they are separable, with an object can come between or after the phrasal verb, or inseparable, where you cannot separate the two. However, if a pronoun comes, it always comes between the verb and the particle, or before them both. And I hope you remember, but we also said that if it's a long phrase, do not separate the verb from the particle, otherwise you will be writing or saying something awkward. And finally, remember that some verbs can be both separable or inseparable with a change in meaning. That's about it. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned with M&M English for more. If you did enjoy the video, please like, subscribe, and share. Keep it up and break a leg.